My dear students, as we are discussing about planning different type of questions for the interviewing, there are some competency-based questions. However, before going to discuss competency-based questions, we need to talk a little bit about competency-based interviewing. So, I would like to share some of the bits and pieces regarding competency-based interviewing, that what competency-based interviewing is and what are the different kind of interviews and how we can use competency-based questions from the different candidates in the process of selection. So, my dear students, there are different types of interviews. Literature said sometimes it seems as there are 57 varieties of interviews. It is a big number, isn't it? It is a very big number of 57 interviews. But what is the story? The story is very different. This is because academics and consultants have come up with their own brands to describe essentially similar interview process. My dear student, actually there is one typical generic interview process. And academics and management consultants or HR consultants try to make their own brands of interviews, and then they make little bit changes in the overall generic typical interview process. So that's why the number is so big. Otherwise, the basic kinds of interviews are very few. So we have to discuss something here. There are various behaviorally criterion interviews, those interviews which are focused on the behavior of the candidates. There can be the structured interviews which are fully structured. There are some typical questions which you would ask in a sequence, and then you would expect interviewees to answer those questions in that particular same sequence. Number two is the competency-based structured interview. It is similar to the structured interview, but you would ask more competency-based questions. And we will discuss that what are the different kinds of a competency-based question which we may ask from the candidates. And number three, there are some interviews which are behavioral interviews, that we are asking questions which are mainly related to the behavior of the candidates. It is not necessary that such kind of interviews are structured, because you are depicting behavior of the candidates, so you may ask questions and then candidates can give different kind of answers, and according to their answers you are actually modifying the further interview questions. And then number four is the patterned behavioral description interview. There are some behavioral interviews which have a sequence, which have a pattern, which have a particular pattern, and you would ask those questions only in that particular pattern. And number five, the structured behavioral interviews, those behavioral interviews which are structured, which have particular structured questions, and you have to answer those questions. As far as we are concerned, these are essentially the same process. There are not much bigger differences in such kind of interviews. There are 57, and the number can be increased if more brands of the interview come in by different consultants and academicians. To simplify the picture for you somewhat, let's make some clearer distinctions. Our discussion will be focused under the following headings if we will discuss about the competency-based interviewing. So the first one, we will talk about the purpose of the interview, that why we are going to conduct interview, what are the objectives behind it, what aims we have to conduct the interview. So it is very much important to talk about the purpose of the interview, whether it is an employment interview, whether it is a performance appraisal interview, what kind of interview it is. And number two, we will talk about the differences between structured and unstructured interview. We will compare structured interview with an unstructured interview. So structured versus unstructured interview would be discussed. And number three, there are three types of structured interview. This is more focused, that there are three different kinds of structured interview, and we will talk about each and every particular kind of a structured interview in our discussion. So there is a biographical interview, there is a forward-looking interview, there is a backward-looking interview. So we will talk about these three types of structured interviews. And number four, at the end we will talk about technological format, that how we can conduct interview by using different kind of a technology. So this is also very important, because now it is an era of technology, and in the era of the technology, sometimes we may need to conduct interview by different kind of technology, such as our World Wide Web. We can use the telephone, for interview nowadays. A lot of people are appearing in interview by using Skype. There are some other softwares like GoToMeeting software through which we can conduct interview with so many people in one point of time, and there are so many other technologies the companies are using in conducting interview. So we will talk about all these issues in the next coming slides.